Oh, hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of September 22nd to September 29th. Now, before we do have a recap, breakdown, or anything along these lines, I'm going to remind everybody that I am running a special on my one-on-one sessions for the month of September, and this is our last full week of September. So, all you have to do is go to the website, www.thespirituallyboujee.com, go to astrological consultations, go to the one that says eclipse season special, because if you click any of the other ones, you are not going to get the one-on-one discount. An hour-long session with me is $35. A 90-minute session has been reduced to $50. Again, this will be the last full monthly special that I will run for 2025. So if you are wanting to set up time with me, even if you're wanting to set it up before the end of the year, now is the time to do it at the lower price, because I'm not entirely sure if I'm even going to run any more discounts throughout the rest of the year. So again, make sure you're doing your booking while you can, because if you start complaining in October, I'm going to say sorry for you. You've had a month. It is what it is. Now, we're coming off of that new moon eclipse in Virgo. And just for full clarity, I'm actually recording this during the quote, quote timeline of the eclipse right now. So I'm recording this Sunday, roughly around that 12:30 to 1:30 time span. So I'm in eclipse vibration while I am recording this. So if the downloads take over, because me and my timing and all that, I'm sorry. There's your forewarning on that one. I am excited for this week. My meditation over the last few months, I'm like, we got to get through Mars in Libra. I have personal reasons for that. And we got to get through that eclipse, because there's something about when these planets change signs, there is a sheer energy difference that takes over. And it is immediately following that eclipse, the Virgo new moon that happened at 29 degrees of Virgo. And within 36 hours of that eclipse perfecting, planets start to change signs. And that's how we start this week, is planets changing signs. The sun is going to go into Libra. We're at the start of Libra season. We are now in fall. It's official fall weather. Get your pumpkin spice, do whatever you're going to do. Cauldron weather, do whatever you're going to do. But it's officially fall. Now, the sun is said to be in his fall in the sign of Libra. So quite literally. And what that means is that whenever it comes to things in regards to our identities and our egos and the things that we desire and parts of our confidence, some things will start to level out. We are less likely to do things that disrupt the balance, energetically speaking. However, I think it's interesting that the sun is going into Libra right as, and this actually happens just a few hours before, Mars goes into Scorpio. Now, I want to do a special note. I might even do a meditative rant later this week. I haven't done a meditative rant in a long time. For those that don't know, meditative rants are not necessarily about like big energetic what's going on in the energy per se at that moment, but it's like tying some things together. I do that a lot anyways, but we've got a big one coming up with Mars going into Scorpio. And I will say, if you are a Scorpio rising or you are an Aries rising, or if the last 2 years Mars has been your time lord, you really want to listen to the closing of this episode based off of the Mars dynamic, because Mars plunges into Scorpio this week. And please note how I say plunge. Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. Mars is home. Now, Mars has not been in one of its own home signs and since last spring. It's been a long road of Mars being in Cancer and Leo. We spent like 9 months with the Mars going between those two signs. Then we did about 6.5 weeks of Mars in Virgo. We did another 6 weeks of Mars in Libra. He doesn't like being in Libra. It's exhausting with the Mars going through Libra. And now Mars is going to go into Scorpio. Scorpio that makes us deal with deepest, darkest desires. The things that go on below the surface, the things that linger And he gives one extra element of unfinished business, unresolved details, the past coming back around in some way. And there are reasons for this. I'm going to explain it more in the closing. Mars goes into Scorpio. And as soon as Mars goes into Scorpio, it goes into a testing vibration because Mars will hit a square to Pluto, reactivating a transit that takes us back about 2 years, roughly. It's about a year and a half, a little bit over a year and a half, not quite the 2-year mark. Reactivating a transit that we haven't dealt with in a while, reactivating a vibration that tested fears, tested our core, tested whether we were able to face and overcome trauma. There's been a series of things that have happened specifically between Mars and Pluto. Whenever it comes to the square this week, Mars being in the higher authority, pushing a square onto Pluto while Pluto is retrograde. This is a week where we have to, one, deal with deep-seated wounds, deep-seated fears, deep-seated desires, deep-seated traumas, and how we address them, how we face them, how we overcome, where we are at in our healing process. Are we willing to work through things? Are we able to overcome? And some of us will go into this week feeling a pure test of hate and frustration, and it's going to feel terrible. And I am not going to pretend like it's not, because you're not necessarily going to expect what the universe throws into your face, but it's going to happen. For other people, the past is going to come back around, but it's also going to carry an audience. Like there's extra there, there's support there, there's something else. Because while Mars is going through that square to Pluto, the sun, newly in Libra, in this neutral territory of Libra, will go through a trine with Pluto. There will be understanding. There will be something that keeps the balance. There will be someone that comes through and like, we don't need to fight about this, guys. There's going to be somebody that has a different idea, has a different perspective. There's different information. There's something new to this week. Now, some of us, we know exactly what the new is going to be. And for some people, it's going to bring up old wounds. For some people, it's going to bring up old memories. But your drive and determination is different. Sometimes you can get back on a bicycle and be like, heck yeah, I know how to do all of this. And you got that person right next to you on a bicycle themselves. Oh, when was the last time you did this? Oh, okay. Sometimes that ain't going to be a bicycle. Sometimes it's going to be you turning the corner facing somebody, but luckily you have your best friend with you. You have some level of support. There's a witness. There's somebody there based off of that triggered vibration of Mars's square to Pluto. When it comes to this week, the first few days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, have the heaviest, harshest testing levels of energy. There will still be some of that lingers, the human effect going into Thursday and Friday, but it feels more exact somewhere between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now, again, we have two planets changing signs. We have the sun going into Libra and we have Mars going into Scorpio. Not in that order. I just keep saying the sun first. And many of us are going to be going somewhere new this week, meeting new people this week, doing something new this week. Whether it's weeks in the making or you just made the plans last weekend, doesn't matter. We're meant to step into something new, arrive somewhere new, be seen in some new way this week. Some of us have new people arriving to us, like in our home, new people showing up, things going on. And that's a big possibility. But there's a newness to this week that cannot be ignored. In one way, it does relate back to that new moon eclipse because it was a transitional eclipse. Remember, it hit this completion transitional point and then everything moves signs. So we're meant to do something new. 1, based off of the eclipse, 2, based off the sun going into Libra, and 3, based off of Mars going into Scorpio. We are meant to experience something new, do something new, go somewhere new, be in a new place, be with new people. And for some people, that new will be a challenge. And that takes me back to that Mars Pluto square. For a handful of others, full discretion, Mars square Pluto can also be a challenging, behind the scenes, plumbing type of issue, mechanical type of issue. That's a more human and mundane example, but I've seen it happen. Just FYI, you go to work and there's issues with the electrical or the plumbing or something behind the walls in the building, that type of thing. That can be also be an issue that we deal with Mars Pluto, but that is a more human, mundane vibration that it might be frustrating, but it's not the core triggers of this is the deep-seated healing you needed to do. The electrical issue? What? Okay, let's be fair. The human effect is real. There's a challenge to this week. And for many people, the challenge is going to be awakening an old vibration, old energy, old issues, and bringing something back up to the surface. And a lot of it has to do with not only Mars going into Scorpio, but we still have this reflective energy of Saturn in Pisces. Now, the thing about Saturn and that vibration over the last month, where he has changed signs going from the early degrees of Aries back into Pisces, is it's brought up old wounds. It's brought up old things. Some of the times it's made us nostalgia of like, oh, I miss grandma so much. I wore a hat the other day because it was grandma's hat. So I'm making fun of myself there. Sometimes it just has to do with the fact that you want something to inspire you in an emotional way. You're doing some level of emotional healing. And Mars going into Scorpio will bring forth desires to overcome. I'm putting a lot of heavy emphasis into the Mars aspect because Mars is going to be in Scorpio from this week, starting on the 21st, all the way until November 3rd. And he's got a lot of unfinished business that literally takes us all the way back to 2023 that needs to be dealt with while he's in this area of the sky. And I'm telling you to expect the first round of change, the first round of challenges. And sometimes what you're going to have is the mesh of the two. You go somewhere new. And because you did go somewhere new, it forces you to face something from the past that you didn't even know would be connected to it. Again, you round that corner, but you're in a new office, you're in a new workplace. Yeah, this is great. And you run into that old work colleague that you've had issues with that also suffered something the way you suffered. That they can give a different perspective if we're willing to finally address some healing, or they're going to rattle your cage and show you something else you need to work through, something else you need to work at, and where we need to start to face a fear. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. But I'm not going to sing sunshine and rainbows going into this week. I'm going to tell you that we're going into something new. And for many of us, going into that something new can present challenges. For some people, it's going to be some big spiritual internalized. Some of us, it's going to be like seeing that person's face again that we just want to smash versus say hello. And for some of us, it is going to be that human, mundane, mechanical issues, electrical issues, plumbing issues, something going on behind the wall, behind the scene. We didn't know there was an issue, but something showed up to say, hey, there's an issue. And if that is the way it comes through, as much as that can be expensive for some people, please take note that it can be less nerve-wracking than others. So just be aware of that. Okay. Again, if you are a Scorpio rising or Aries rising, I want you to listen to the closing. I will talk a little bit more about Mars and Pluto as we go through the transits throughout the week, but there's a special note for the Mars ruled individuals that I want to cover in the closing. And I'm not going to beat up on it in the beginning. So Zoom has done some changes. We're going to play with these changes. And now you should see more of my face than normal, just FYI, but I don't really quite know how I feel about it yet. So you guys give me some feedback on the new layout. September 22nd, we are on Monday. Now the moon is going to be in Libra all day long. I've got it right here at 2:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. 2:55. Mars goes from Libra, bump this by 1 hour, and into Scorpio. If you wake up on Monday feeling some weird kind of weight, something kind of inside, if you have that weird waking up at 3 something in the morning vibration of like, oh, something's hitting, that is an energy activation. And I need you to be prepared for that. I need you to be prepared that there is something new that's meant to come through, that for some people, you're not going to expect it because it is a part of the new, while also that bleeding of the old unfinished business, because we're going through both this week. Okay. Now, bump this a couple more hours between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. Got this right now at 6:30 in the morning. The moon is going to make a conjunction to Mercury. This is not super heavy, but what I will say is this is the next activation towards the eclipse that we had over the weekend, because that eclipse was in Mercury sign. Now we got that moon Mercury conjunction. And this feels like a meeting. This feels like early morning communication. This feels like early morning, like meetings, discussion, something that needs to be announced in some way, some kind of decision coming through based off of that moon Mercury conjunction. Now, if for some people it can be kind of mundane, for other people it can have to do with travel, for other people it can have to do with, again, big decision making types of things. There's some kind of communication announcement vibration that seems to feel like it's a part of Monday morning. So again, most exact felt between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to keep this going. At 1:20 excuse me, p.m. is when the sun goes into Libra. So now I got this at 1:30. So now we have the next arrival. Now, as soon as the sun goes into Libra, it's already in its opposition to Neptune, and it is going to be in a building opposition to Neptune all day. It's not going to go exact until the 23rd, but I want to bring this up because anytime we have harsh things with Neptune, whether it's a square, a conjunction, or an opposition, we can struggle to focus. We can struggle to connect. We are easily distracted. And some of us, because we are going somewhere new, if you're going into a new workplace on Monday or Tuesday or whenever it might be, so I'm still explaining it right here, and I'm going to explain it even more on Tuesday. You don't memorize everybody's names as soon as you go in. You don't know the layout of the building of every place that you've went and visited as soon as you walk in. There's going to be some things that it's like, it's hard to connect. And for some people, that's going to be completely normal. For other people, it might be the little bit more of that, like, it's triggering an insecurity. Why am I getting a little triggered? Why am I feeling a little bit insecure? Don't feed too much into that energy. Just be aware of that. As soon as the sun goes into Libra, like I said, at 1:20 p.m. on the 22nd, it starts its opposition to Neptune. We will be building to it all day on Monday, but it's not actually going to go exact until the next day. So we're going to go ahead and bump this now to the 23rd. We're going into Tuesday. And all through the overnight hours, the sun is going through that opposition to Neptune. It actually goes exact roughly around 7:43 a.m. Central Standard Time. I got it at 7:30. That's close enough. So we're still going to be in that foggy disconnect, kind of confused. Everything's kind of surreal. Some things look shinier than others. Some things just don't make sense. There's something brewing. Now, for some people, this can be inspiring. We want to do some things that are rather inspiring, a little bit artsy. And if you're trying to put something into a creative energy, I like it. If you are trying to put something into like a tangible, full, like build-up element, this is going to be a little bit harder. And again, if you're going through a new place, you're not going to memorize every place that you're visiting. You're not going to memorize the whole building on day one, and don't expect yourself to do that. Some things are going to make sense. Some things are going to be a little bit confusing. Some things are going to be a little bit surreal. Some things might feel a little bit nostalgic. The other thing about the Sun Neptune, and now that we're in the exactness, I didn't really say this on Monday, but it can still apply to Monday. It can still apply to Wednesday. It's just the most exact right here. And that is Sometimes you have to face something in regards to symptoms. That would be Sun Neptune. Other things that we can be dealing with is talking about somebody's lies, their fraud, their deception, how a lie, fraud, deception has brought something to the surface. And some people might feel enthralled to challenge. I actually question whether you can fully challenge, because again, we don't want to necessarily disrupt. Now that the sun's in Libra, we don't want to disrupt things the same way. But if you catch somebody in the lie, it's going to play into the vibration. I just want to be clear about that. And you might have to, continue forward and move with something in regards to lies, fraud, deception. And I don't know that you have the immediate energy to deal with that in this moment, but it can still present itself. The sun in Libra doesn't necessarily want to challenge somebody. So it's more along the lines of like you catch it and you need time before you can deal with it. You need time to process. Like some of you, you're looking at something like, I don't even know how to handle this. Oh, it's going to be an interesting day. Keep it going. As we get closer to the lunchtime hour, I'm going to put this to 11:30. We're going to go through a square between Jupiter 21 degrees, 30 minutes, and the moon. So you can see right here, Jupiter square the moon, moon's in Libra at 21:44. So we're just past the exact right here. Jupiter's in the higher authority. It is the doctor, the guru, the teacher, giving guidance, giving direction, giving advice, giving ideas, giving the methodology, giving direction. Jupiter hitting that square to the moon. Now, considering Jupiter is a different octave of Neptune, this can still be playing out with some of the morning vibrations that we've dealt with. In other ways, this can be where we start to commit to levels of training if we're doing something new in like the job sense. But there does speak to something of like direction, guidance, information. It's very much a teaching moment, even if the lesson is not completely clear or completely understood, because we are still in that Sun Neptune vibration. All right, we're going to keep this going. We're going to get into the evening time between 7 and 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'll put this at 8:30. The moon is going to go through an opposition to Chiron. And anytime we do something with Chiron, it's either becoming aware of a wound, becoming aware of an action. Considering Chiron is in Mars' sign and Mars just went into Scorpio, we could be talking about secret wounds, wounds that other people were not knowing about. Some of us are going to be getting the solutions to a situation that we were not anticipating because we didn't know the other person had been hurt in that way before. So it's very interesting vibration whenever the moon hits that opposition to Chiron. Like you didn't even know that person had been hurt, had gone through that in the past. Like you didn't know what you didn't know. And then once that level of energy was kind of put into place, it's like, oh, I didn't know. And now that I'm hearing that, I'm seeing why you would give this advice. But at the same time, like I'm stunned, I'm dumbfounded. Now I want to be clear about something. We have a building energy going on. Sorry, I go one space there. A building energy going between Mars and Pluto. It is very active right here. And considering the moon is hitting that opposition to Chiron, and Chiron is in Mars' sign while Mars is building into that square with Pluto, there is still that revisiting of something from the past that's a part of the challenge. That's a part of that vibration. That's a part of the energy. And if you are in a situation where you're either talking about your wounds, you have no idea how much you're going to traumatize somebody. In other ways, you're going to have some level of solution or something that we're putting together, and you don't realize that the other half of the party, like you're giving advice to one person, but the other half of the party is someone that you're familiar with. And you might not know it immediately, but there speaks to deep levels of wounds finding their way up to the surface as we go through the day on Tuesday, and we start to feel some exactness once we get into the evening time. And I'm not quite done here. Mars Pluto goes exact on the 24th. It's actually exact on Wednesday, but we're building to it all day on Tuesday. And there can be some tensions while also having this initial energy of like, but I don't want to disrupt anything. That won't last, especially once the moon goes into Scorpio. It's not going to last at all. Okay, we're going to keep it going. Between 9:36 and 10 p.m. So this is still kind of in that moon Chiron opposition, but then we get our exactness between Uranus hitting the trine to the sun. Uranus is expect the unexpected first and foremost. There can be electrical issues, there can be communication issues, there can be other types of vibrations that speak to hitting you unexpectedly, but it's there's layered effect to it, considering Uranus is now retrograde. And we've had a lot of other little things hit Uranus over the course of like the last week. Like over the weekend, we had the Uranus Venus square. Now we're going into a trine from Uranus. There can be like a pickup from the previous energies, especially if we had something unexpected hit over the weekend, most exact between like Friday and Saturday. Electrical issues. I'm sticking with the electrical as much as plumbing whenever we go through this part of the transit. Having an electrical issue, electrical shock, or learning of an electrical issue where we need to get an understanding of how to fix something. So be aware of that. We're going to keep it going. Oh, we're going to move this into the 24th. So we're going to move this into Wednesday. We still have active energies that were part of late Tuesday that are feeding into the overnight hours going into Wednesday. So the human effect is this can still happen Tuesday evening. This can still be a part of the 23rd. That's the human effect. But it can also play out sometime throughout the day on Wednesday. So I want people to be aware of what we're going into in this conversation. Now, right after midnight, between 12:52 and 1:16 a.m. Central Standard Time, while the sun is going through its trine with Uranus still, it is now in its exact trine with Pluto. Uranus can be electrical issues. Pluto can be the plumbing issues. So if we're having some things that like speak to like that, again, human mundane possibility, that's one thing. But I also feel like there's going to be some other things that bring awareness, unexpected awareness, and unexpected triggers of something from the past that has not been well dealt with, that got ignored, that we didn't know was an issue for some reason. The sun is still in that opposition to Neptune while it's going through those trines between Pluto and Uranus. And this is the most exact, really, that timeline of Tuesday evening going into Wednesday that we get the grand trine between the sun, Pluto, and Uranus. So be aware of like the mental energy of not being able to shut things off or turn things down. Just be aware that if you're feeling any sort of way, whether it's triggered and traumatized, whether you're dealing with the human mundane issues, or whether you're going through some level of shock while you right after trying to find some kind of solution, like the download energy of Tuesday night going into the overnight hours into Wednesday morning, it's a lot for a lot of people. And I feel like by the time we get into the actual morning time of the 24th, that's going to have a lot more layers to it. Now I'm going to keep this going. At 4:01 a.m. Central Standard Time, that is when the moon is going to go into Scorpio. Now, the moon is not necessarily at its happiest in Scorpio. It's said to be in its fall. And as soon as the moon goes into Scorpio, it is also going to hit that square to Pluto. It is also going to go into that conjunction with Mars, and it is going to add an extra layer very, very quickly to tensions, to the tests, to the frustrations, to the triggers, to the traumas, or to whatever mundane issue is going on behind the walls. Because for some people, it's going to be the behind the wall stuff. And I don't want to ignore that this time. Plumbing, mechanical, electrical, those types of things. I feel like there's a wave of that too. And what can happen is, again, we don't necessarily know how we're going to find the solution, or we need other people to help us find the solution as soon as the moon goes into Scorpio. Now, once the moon gets through the next few days, like there is going to be extra layers of emotional response to the deep-seated wounds, to the insecurities, to the trauma, to the triggers, to whatever has come up at that beginning vibration. And it keeps going for the next few days. And the moon in Scorpio is not going to be fun for a lot of people unless you are a Scorpio rising like me, because then there's the potential of like attention being on you. And that can go well. However, not everybody's going to have attention on them. And some people are going to, again, have the traumas, the triggers, the frustrating responses, find ways to come up to the surface. And I'm looking at the fact that Pluto is retrograde and slowly starting to station over the course of the next month. He's going to turn direct. But we also have the next 6 weeks of Mars going through Scorpio. And there's little things that need to be brought up to the surface that are going to take the next month and a half, rounding it out, to understand, to overcome, to heal, to deal with the yada, 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 yada. Okay. If we're not happy with the moon in Scorpio, I warned you. That's all I'm getting at. Okay. Moving along. The moon is now in Scorpio, and we're just going to a couple more hours, roughly the 6:30 marker, because that's going to get everything the way we need it. Between 6:38 and 7:12 a.m. Central Standard Time, that is when Mars will go through its exact square to Pluto. So this is why I was saying part of this can happen in the human effect of Tuesday evening. For a lot of other people, there can be some triggered trauma, frustrating things going into Wednesday morning. I need you to anticipate it all the way through. The most difficult vibrations are coming through somewhere between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. There can be lingering things going into Thursday and Friday, but right now we're at the start of Wednesday morning. The moon's going to hit that conjunction to Mars. The moon is going to go through that square to Pluto while Mars and Pluto are actually in their exact square. There will be a moment roughly around that 7 o'clock hour that the moon and Mars will be in an exact conjunction in their exact square to Pluto. This can be a very harsh energy. This can be an abrupt, nasty, not fun, abusive, traumatic energy. For other people, there's going to be major level of disruption that brings forth insecurity and frustration. For other people, it's going to be that human sense of like, what do you mean the plumbing's broke? I'm not wishing for that, but I don't always bring the plumbing thing up, and I want to bring that up. And there could also be mechanical issues, electrical issues, stuff that goes on behind the scenes, below the hood, behind the wall, below the ground, that kind of thing too. So be aware of that. Now, again, Scorpio risings, Aries risings, listens to the closing, because I got another layer of this that I need to talk about directly with you guys. Keep it going. Oh, this is going to be such a fun morning. It's going to be so fun. I would not be surprised if we go back to the geyser vibration of things just kind of popping up, or you didn't even know there was an issue and then poof, right through the surface of this. Yeah, that type of thing. And considering not only is the moon in here, but the sun is in that trine to Pluto still, it's like whatever trauma, trigger, frustration is in that vibration, there are witnesses, there's support, there's another example, there's tension, there's frustration, there's fighting. That moon Mars can have a lot of fighting to it, and Pluto just adding an extra effect. It's not going to be the funnest morning for a lot of people. And also be careful driving on your morning commute, because it's not going to be a fun morning for a lot of people. Let's keep it going. Let's get into the afternoon now. A little bit of lighter energy per se between 4 and 6:30 p.m. I gave a larger window to this one. Venus in Virgo is going to hit not a trine, a sextile to the moon. Now, this is a little bit more helpful. Venus in Virgo is a lot more practical, solution oriented, trying to put a process together, trying to put a procedure together. Given the fact that Venus and Mercury are in mutual reception, whatever Libra rules can also impact this vibration too. So we can be giving orders of what needs to be done, what needs to be overcome, how we get solutions to something, how we need to fix something. This can be about a process, an order, a procedure, direction, documentation, filing. Even though Venus doesn't normally come with filing, it's Venus in Virgo. And it's like, there's an aesthetic value of like, I put all of this in order, and it's color coded and it's glittered. And if you tell me you can't figure out how to do this, then are you colorblind and you forgot to tell me? Like that. It's like, it's that level of detail oriented. And it's like the right person that knows how to not just create a process, but to make it fun or tasteful or helpful, is offering solution, offering intention, offering support, offering some level of additional energy. So it doesn't have to be heavy the entire day. And sometimes you just need a friend that has the ability to tell the right type of joke in the afternoon to kind of lighten the mood of like, okay, I know you don't feel good, Moon and Scorpio, but I got a funny joke to tell you. I had this funny thing happen. It can be so great. Can we just try to lighten it up just a little bit, a little bit? Okay, moving along. Moving along. When it comes to the rest of the 24, so the rest of Wednesday, there is not a whole lot of transit. So we're just going to keep it going. We're going to go to the 25th. And the 25th is going to be real interesting because there's practically no transits. There is the carryover of what has happened between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Some of that lingering vibration. The sun is still in its trine to Pluto. It's separating from its opposition to Neptune. It's separating from its trine with Uranus. Mars is still technically in its square to Pluto. So we can still have some weight and frustrations. And we have the moon in Scorpio all day. So some of the weight and frustrations can be very, very real. And you can go dark, you can have weightedness, you can have this inability of being able to express certain things. And I feel like that inability can continue all the way until the evening time, because the one and only transit that we do get to Thursday happens between 11 p.m. on the 25th and 1:30 a.m. on the 26th, so the next day on Friday. And that's whenever Jupiter goes through its trine with the moon. Jupiter is in a water sign. It is in a healing sign. It is in the moon sign. So sometimes what we need is for someone to give an understanding about why we feel the weight, why we feel the trauma, why we feel so triggered, why this has come back up. And Jupiter, again, the doctor, the guru, the teacher, hitting that trine to the moon. Jupiter is in the moon sign. So it's like, look, I understand how you feel. I've felt this way before. This is what it took to feel better. This is what it took to overcome. This is what it took to get to a different place in life, in love, in the mentality. This is what it took to finally heal and let go of that part of my life. Jupiter is hitting the trine to the moon. Now, again, this is the one and only transit to Thursday, and it's not even completely on Thursday. It starts around 11 p.m. on the 25th. It continues into the 26th. So I got this still at 12, now on Friday, the 26th, 12:30 a.m. Here's Jupiter hitting that trine to the moon, still in this active vibration. But whenever it comes to the rest of the day on Friday, we got more things going on. So some of us can have some late night energy on Thursday of like, I just need someone to help. I need somebody to explain it. I need some guidance. I need some support. And that's what that Jupiter moon stuff felt like for a lot of people. And again, it felt like we needed support in how that carry over to whatever happened on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, whether it was good, bad, or ugly, has impacted. Okay, now we're going to keep this going. Get this a little bit closer to lunchtime. We're still on Friday, of course, now. And between 11:30 and 1:30 a.m., so now I got this at 12:30, the moon is going to go through a trine with Saturn. Saturn is back in Pisces. We're just almost to a month back in Pisces because he came back in on September 1st. The moon going through this trine. There's something about the elder. There's something about the boss. There's something about the authority figure. We're expressing certain things. We're expressing some insecurity. We're talking about the possibilities. We're talking about where we saw a power dynamic shift this week. We're talking about past things while also dealing with new things. There's something here that speaks to the layered effect of in the past we did it one way, and now we need to look at a new way of doing things. We need to look at a new way of handling things. Now, sometimes whenever Saturn being retrograde in this area, sometimes the boss, the authority figure, the elder, whoever, they are receptive to change. Other times they are not. And sometimes we're going to have certain conversations with the boss, with our grandparent, with whoever the authority figure is, or the elder is, or the more responsible party is. Sometimes you are going to be the responsible party and somebody's coming to you. I need help with this. I need to understand this. I found out about this. This is what happened. I need your help. I need you. I need support. Now, considering the moon and Saturn are moving towards each other, you are likely to get the support that you need from the authority figure, from the boss, from the elder, from the responsible party. They are moving towards each other. So that's a good thing. Just be aware of like it feels like a heavy conversation for some, but it also feels like a very timely conversation for other people, given the moon hitting that trine to Saturn. Now we're going to keep this going. At 4:38 p.m. Central Standard Time, bumping this to 5:30, the moon is going to go into Sagittarius. And the moon in Sagittarius feels a lot better than the moon in Scorpio. Now, I will say with the moon in Sagittarius, the moon and Jupiter are in mutual reception. We've talked about this a couple times before, but it's like we find the benefit, we find the reward, we find the aid, we find the lessons, we find the help in a way that we did not know, that we did not anticipate, that we did not expect, because Jupiter and the moon are in mutual reception, but they're in areas of the chart where they don't see eye to eye. So some of the benefits, some of the help, some of the guidance, some of the things that we do are the things we would not normally do, we would not normally have thought of, or we would not normally have put together once the moon goes into Sag. Now, do I feel like it's going to be a complete uptick that everybody is just going to be like, boom, energy through the roof? Not necessarily. The energy is still lingering from that second eclipse. We're still technically in the closeout of eclipse season. In addition to that, depending on the weight of the trauma, the trigger of everything with Mars going through that square to Pluto, the sun doing everything that it was doing with Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, it's a little bit harder to say that by the time we get to Friday, everything's going to be hunky-dory, but we can start to make an attempt. We can start to do what we can to feel a little bit better. And some people might have some things that are a little unexpected that like help us find distraction. But I will say once the moon goes into Sagittarius, we will feel a bit more of an uptick compared to how we dealt with the first part of the week. And I don't feel like we're going to be as insecure as we had been over the course of the entire week. So there is some pluses once the moon goes into Sagittarius. It's just getting us to that point. Now, the moon goes into Sagittarius. Now, the first thing the moon starts to do is it goes through a trine to Neptune. And that is going to be felt the most exact between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. So as soon as the moon goes into Sag, it basically starts its trine to Neptune. Now, this is fire to fire, passion to passion. This can be needing a distraction. Like you get off work on Friday and you're like, oh my God, this week has been so crazy. I need a drink. I need something else. I need to go do something fun. I need a distraction. For other people, you're going to be getting to the end of the business day on Friday and be like, oh my God, I don't ever want to do that again. And we need something that kind of breaks us out of the funk. Some people are going to have some unexpected type of thing come up on Friday. And there's another reason why I'm saying that is because while the moon is going through its trine to Neptune between 6 and 9 p.m., so I'm going to bump this just to that 6:30, the moon is still in that trine to Neptune, but it is also starting its exact opposition to Uranus and its sextile to Pluto. So the sun is hitting all three of these simultaneously once we get into that 6 o'clock hour. And this is going to last part of the evening. So again, we get off work somewhere after that 5 o'clock hour going into Friday. We want to do something we don't normally do. We are trying to find a way to get through whatever trauma trigger has happened. And whatever we might have had planned before is going to have something unexpected to it if we had plans. If you had no plans going into Friday night, then you could have something pop up and be like, I really want us to go out. I've got tickets that I didn't think that I was going to be able to go to. You want to go with me? I was like, it wasn't planned. Whatever starts to go in place for Friday night, it's either going to be something super exciting that you've never done before, or it's not planned. And I want you to expect the unexpected, but I kind of mean it in more of that excited, let's do something to break through the muck from the week. And I don't, again, feel like a full uptick of overcoming everything will come through, but I feel like there's a lot more of a better energy. Like I feel like as the weekend progresses, everything kind of picks up a little bit more. It's just not going to be as immediate as the moon going in. I think it's a gradual progression throughout the entire evening. And then it's like we get into Saturday. So I'm going to bump this now to the 27th. And that's all we're doing is dealing with the moon in Sag. Now, right after midnight, whenever the moon is in Sagittarius, it is going to go through a sextile from the sun. So I have the sun here, 4 degrees, 22 minutes. Here's the moon, 3 minutes. I'm sorry, 3 degrees and 53 minutes. If I could talk, that would be great. And we're just at the start of this sextile. This can be something that, again, gives a boost of confidence, a little bit of recognition, a little bit of support. There's a lot more vibe in this energy. Little by little, we do start to pick up. It's just not going to be as instant, like I said before. Now, there can be like seeing somebody, supporting somebody, doing something, again, to boost some confidence whenever the sun hits the sextile to the moon. This can be human effect, something about Friday evening. For some people, it's going to be after midnight going into Saturday, like it is right here. For other people, it might just be how we start the actual day going into Saturday of like, I just want to do this thing because I think it's going to make me feel better. I want to try something I've never done before. I want to do something that I would not normally put together. And as we go through the day, there just feels like a general energetic push up, pick up, moving along. Little by little, we're starting to feel better. Now, roughly between noon and 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I got this now at 12:30, Venus, 10 degrees, 2 minutes, is going to go through a square with the moon. So this is more exact, roughly around that 1 o'clock area. Venus is in the higher authority. Remember, Venus and Mercury are in mutual reception with one another. So whatever Libra rules, Virgo, these two are both impacting each other. So I'd be aware of like what this rules. For me, I'm going to use my own example. Virgo is my 11th house of friends, clients, people along this line. Venus hitting that square to the moon. It can be hanging out with friends, spending a little money with them. It can be doing something that brings pleasure, that's also practical, that everybody can agree with, that everybody feels like is fair, that everybody has agreed on. Like this energy feels like a push, but it also feels like a helpful push. You need to get out of your funk. We need to try a little bit harder. We need to do something different. Hey, I've got some extra information that I can tell you. I have some extra knowledge that I can give to you. I can help in some ways that would not necessarily immediately be anticipated, but it is supportive energy. And considering this is the one of the only 2 transits that's happening on Saturday, everything around here just kind of feels like a natural push up, pick up, and feel good vibration into the vibe. Okay, we're going to keep this going. I like the weekend. It's very low pressure. I feel like a lot of people, if you just want to go do something out of the box, to get out of the funk, that is a great way to deal with this. Now we're going to keep this going. We're getting into the 28th. Now we're into Sunday. And right after that midnight hour, between 1:30 and 3:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, so I got this right now at 2:30, Mercury is going to go through that sextile to the moon. Now, again, Mercury and Venus are in mutual reception. So every time Mercury goes through something, it impacts Venus. Every time Venus goes through something, it impacts Mercury. So whatever happens in this sextile might be a lingering effect of communicating what we did on Saturday, posting pictures about what we did on Saturday, having some additional conversations to the practicalities of Saturday, of the solutions we found to Saturday, to the process of Saturday, to the things that we put in order on Saturday. And again, given this hour of time, this can be real late on Saturday for some people. For other people, it's all a part of Sunday. And it might actually be something like whenever you do wake up in the morning hours, that's whenever you get that human effect of everything. Now, as we go through the morning, we do have another energy that's going to pop up. And I wouldn't normally bring this up, but this kind of came through in my meditation. I want to keep kind of putting this together. One, the moon is going to square the nodes. And this feels like an energetic shift and an energetic release that I wouldn't normally put a lot of weight into. But I also feel like there's downloads to the day on Sunday, clarity of information, clarity of the process. Like this might be me as an individual, just kind of like letting you know what I'm anticipating. But I feel like I'm not the only one. If you are energetically sensitive, I feel like there's something to Sunday that we have the ability to, again, learn things that we didn't know, benefit in ways that we did not anticipate, gather information, gather ideas, gather whatever we need, talk some things through, find ways to put some things into an order, find ways to put some things into agreement to put some things together in ways that don't initially make sense to everyone until we go through the actual day. Because beyond that Mercury moon sextile, everything else is going through, like in this moon squaring the nodes, everything else is going into energies towards the mutual reception and also contra-anticias, which are known as like secret transits. And I don't want to do a full breakdown of contra-anticias right now. I know I've brought them up a lot lately. Venus and Mercury are going to go through a contra-anticia, but in addition to that, like we also have like quincunx energy going on between Jupiter and the moon. So there's something here that speaks to indifference or unexpected support based off of meetings, based off of documentation, based off of the communication, based off of the mental energy. And again, I feel like there's some download energy of things coming through, especially if you are energetically sensitive, inspiration, ideas all throughout the day on Sunday. But I've got some timelines that feel the most exact. Considering the moon will square the nodes and we are still kind of wrapping up eclipse season, I feel like part of the downloads are going to give an idea of how we pick something up or push something forward or push something towards more gains. But it's internalized energy. It's not some big dramatic, yes, this is it, let's announce it to everybody. Like, it's not that. It feels like a click. That whenever we go through Sunday, that there is a click to the vibration, to the day, to our mental energy, to the things that we need to do to restore balance, to the things that we to do things that we need to do that's fair for everyone. There's something in this vibration that feels like a bit of a click, but it's not something that we're acting upon. Now, again, for some people, it can be internal desires, deep-seated things that need to be a part of the click. Part of it can finally be telling some people some things that they've never known before about other individuals in life that we haven't had the strength to deal with before. Some people are going to have some type of triggered insecurity too this week that needs to be addressed, that needs to be talked out and worked through. But I don't feel like everybody can work through the way as fast as we would like. And that takes me now to Mars. And there's something very specific to Mars and Scorpio that I want to cover. Now, some of you, you've listened to me for a long time. Other people, you are just starting to listen to me in the last few months, in the last year. And I want to talk about Mars rebirth. Anytime a planet goes into a conjunction to the sun, it's kind of a shedding of the skin. It's a rebirthing of the vibration. The last time Mars hit a conjunction to the sun was in Scorpio in November of 2023. Now, what was interesting about that vibration is it was a Mars rebirth in a Mars ruled sign while the North Node was in Aries. And if you listen to me that far back, I said, look, we're going to have gains that we cannot easily see, that we cannot easily handle, that we're not easily going to be able to put into place, put together, put forward until the spring of 2024. And that kind of went into eclipse season and all that. But in addition to that, Mars is now back in an area where he set intention. Now, if you are an Aries rising, Mars, of course, is your chart ruler. Scorpio is your 8th house of death, debt, taxes, inheritance, shared assets, shared resources, investments, secrets, the occult. There's a lot of things that are 2 years in the making based off of Mars and Scorpio that are going to reach a peak level over the course of the next 6 weeks. If you are a Scorpio rising like me, and you set some intentions, you had some things revealed to you, you had some frustrations, you had some pressures that came through back in November of 2023. We are now going to be revisiting them. We are amplifying them. For some people, you've dealt with something in your health because the North Node in Aries was in your 6th house of health. For an Aries rising, that North Node in your 1st was some kind of gains for you as an individual, but not gains that you could easily see at that time. Now, the North Node is not in Aries, but Neptune is, and there's an inspiration area there. There's an inspiration of something that we're trying to put together. Now, are we going to get it all put together in the next 6 weeks? No. I am more likely to say the next 6 months. And this is why I'm saying I might go ahead and do a meditative rant video to explain more of the Mars stuff, because we have a Mars rebirth coming. It's just not going to be in Scorpio this time. It's going to be in January, and it's going to be in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, right before Saturn completely submerges itself into Aries. There's a reason all year I'm like, pinky toe dip, pinky toe dip. We don't have the full elements yet. We don't know everything yet. We're not getting everything yet. We're more likely to get it next year. Mars going into Scorpio needs to settle out the intentions that we set 2 years ago. Again, financial stuff, potentially certain gains as individuals. There can also be secrets and affairs tied to Aries risings. I'm not quick to go that route, but it can still be there. For Scorpio risings, this is how you are of service. This can go back to things in your health. There's something that needs to pick up in your drive. There's something in your goals, things that you need to pick back up on. And they are going to amplify, and they are going to level up over the course of the next 6 weeks. The level up vibration is putting a foundation together to something that will then take the full 6-month element, because I feel like a lot of energy has all been preparing for Neptune and Saturn to go into Aries. And that again fully starts next year. Now, there's another element to this week, and that goes back to the Mars Pluto. Now, anytime two planets come into a conjunction, obviously we're not talking about a conjunction right now, but I need to go backwards to bring this forward. We had a Mars-Pluto conjunction the week of Valentine's in 2024. In June, we had Pluto square Mars, and we had a test, a trauma, a trigger. But then we had the Mars opposition to Pluto. And the tricky thing about that is we didn't have one, we had 3 because of the Mars retrograde. We had Mars opposite Pluto between Capricorn and Cancer that happened in November of 2024. Sorry, I had to do that. We had the retrograde Mars-Pluto opposition that happened in January of 2025. And then we had the third and final one in April of 2025. If you are like me, Mars-Pluto, each one of them were connected. Each one of them were connected. And that means whatever happens in Mars Pluto this week is going to be the next round, the next level, next layer to what occurred back then. Because it's the next part of the test. And this test will not complete until we have our full Mars Pluto conjunction in the spring of 2026. We're picking back up on an old energy. Now, not everybody knows what happened to them. Valentine's. Some of you might, because holidays tend to trigger better energy. Like you remember, oh, that was a horrible Valentine's. And I warned everybody that Valentine's was not going to be fun. But not everybody remembers what happens during the Mars retrograde. Not everybody remembers what happened in June of 2024. Like some of you don't remember that pattern, but then whenever it comes back up in your face, they're like, oh, so this is it. This is the time. That's what it was. That's the repeat. But we're also in new vibration while simultaneously triggering the old. And there's something about the old triggers that either we need to overcome the trauma, overcome the power struggle. And for most of us to overcome, there's a level of support in it. We need to face something differently and then find a new way to overcome power dynamics so they don't halt us anymore. Now, there's, again, a lot of layers and levels. If you know what happened to you in the prior Mars-Pluto dates, then that's great. And that gives you an example of what to look for in this one. If you do not remember, you will likely remember whenever the trigger happens. The other thing that can happen in the Mars-Pluto trigger, I'm just going to call it that. It's a square. But the trigger is, if you did heal from it before, the repeat and the pattern can see exact same situation playing out with 2 other people. And some of you, you're going to find yourself in the support scenario of like, don't do that. And you're going to be that person trying to keep something from happening, keep someone from being traumatized, keep somebody from being triggered or going through some type of change. So you might not see the repeat of the exact situation or the exact person, but more along the lines of a test to see the exact situation in different people. And I've seen that happen too. I want people to be aware of what's coming down the pipeline, because the triggers of this week speak back to a lot of prior dates that in some ways we haven't had to deal with for a while. We haven't had to talk about for a while. We haven't had to face in a while. And I'm telling you now, there's something about this week that triggers old, deep-seated wounds. And they're a part of that final round of healing that we need to handle. One element of healing is, the unfinished business of Saturn and Pisces. But the other thing is that Mars and Scorpio. If you were like me and during the Mars rebirth, so there's two things that we're talking about here. One is the Mars-Pluto square. Now I'm backing back up to that Mars rebirth. If you set intentions for a new long-term desire and a new long-term goal, the next 6 weeks of Mars and Scorpio can amplify, really level up the desire of our intentions from roughly 2 years ago. And I want people to be aware of that, because we are moving into a vibration of the next 6 weeks of really pushing something to the surface. If you are Mars ruled, or if in the last 2 years, Mars has been your time lord, like Mars has been the ruler of the perfection year you've been living through. Now, if you don't know who your perfection year is, again, I'm running a special on my one-on-one sessions. And one of the things I talk about with people in their one-on-one sessions is who rules that year for them, what planet is ruling for them. And sometimes we need to know what we don't know. Now, some of you can go back. You can go back through your text messages. You can go back through emails. You can go back through photos. You can go back through your social media, and you can look back to prior timelines. Some of you will. Some of you are going to wing it. And whether it is a positive overcoming power dynamic this week or a traumatic triggering part of this week, I need people to be prepared that this is a part of the unfinished business, while also simultaneously being part of the new and the transitional vibration that we are in. Because sometimes the only way you can cement yourself completely in the new is to know that part of the past doesn't control you anymore. So be aware of that. And if you deal with that mundane example of just mechanical issues, electrical issues, or plumbing issues, I'm sorry about that too, but I have no control over that. Pluto is Pluto. Anyways, I love and appreciate every single one of you. I hope everyone has a great week. I hope everyone had a good eclipse. There is still a moving vibration that we are in. I'm waiting and ready to hear from everybody as to how everything plays out, but I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.